Welcome to Tax Insights, presented by Hawkins Ash CPAs.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome back to an all-new episode of Tax Insight here on the Lakeshore's good neighbor, WOMT. We got Jeff joining us once again from Hawkins Ash. Jeff, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Terry.
Today, we're talking about I-bonds, and I got to be honest, right off the front, I don't know what an I-bond is.
You know, until just recently, I think a lot of people didn't know what they were, but that's kind of changed because, prior to November 1st of 2022, the interest rate on these bonds skyrocketed and they went up to 9.62%, which got a lot of people's attention. And many people started to look and even purchase these bonds. Now, although the rate is very good, there's other factors that maybe we should talk about with these bonds.
All right, so let's break it down first and foremost for those listeners like myself that don't really know what an I-bond is. What is this?
So an I-bond is a government-issued, essentially a savings bond. But this savings bond is intended on protecting people from inflation. The bond interest rate is tied to the inflation rate, and it changes every 6 months, normally in November and May. And once a bond is purchased, it doesn't mature for 30 years, even though people can actually cash them in earlier if they want to.
So then how does the interest work?
Yeah, the interest is calculated on a semi-annual basis and is added to a person's account. This interest is actually only paid to a person in cash once the bond is cashed out or when it matures.
So you said earlier that the interest rate changes. Can you explain that a little bit more in detail?
Sure. Because these savings bonds are tied to the inflation rate, the rate does change. So when everybody was talking about the I-bonds, the interest rate was 9.62%. But effective on November 1st of 2022, and this rate goes until April 30th of 23, the rate decreased to 6.89%. Both of these are pretty good amounts, but you can tell it goes down depending on what the inflation is.
Right. So why have people not really talked about these earlier?
Mostly because, we haven't had this kind of high inflation for quite a long time. For example, in 2014 and 15, the interest rate was actually 0% because of deflation. From 2015 all the way to 2020, the highest rate that these bonds paid was 2.86%, and many were, below the 2% range. So I just wanted to let everybody know this information, since the high rates that are being paid right now, this isn't typical. But now it's still better off than a savings rate. Not great, but still better than a savings rate.
So I assume the interest is taxable?
Yeah, but it's taxable for federal only. It's not taxable for states. That's the nice thing about savings bonds. Also, a person has the choice to pick up the interest on an annual basis, even though the interest will not be paid out until they actually cash out the bond, or they can pick up the interest later on when it's paid out. There's benefits to both of these options. So this is where we always say, talk to your tax advisor to see what's better for you. Now, the interest is not taxable if you use the proceeds to pay for higher education. You'll want to check the rules on this also to see if you qualify.
So you said it earlier, 30 years, but someone can actually cash out earlier. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, so you can cash out an I-bond after 12 months. However, if you cash them out in the first 5 years, you're going to lose 3 months worth of interest. So it's not a large penalty, but it is something that people should be aware of.
Jeff, a lot of great information here on the program. One last question before we get going. Is there anything else that people should be aware of before buying an I-bond?
Yeah, so this is not something that you're going to get from your investment advisor. These bonds can be purchased directly from the Treasury Direct website. And the site will also show your current balance with the interest that's been accrued. There is a limitation, though. A person can only buy up to $10,000 of I-bonds in 1 year, and that's limited by your Social Security number. And the other thing is that if you purchase some with your tax refund on your tax return, then you get an extra $5,000 that you can purchase per year for a grand total of $15,000.
Jeff, a lot of great information each and every week here in Tax Insight. How do listeners connect with the team over at Hawkins Ash?
I would go to our website, which is hawkinsash.cpa.
Jeff, thank you for your time. We'll talk to you next week here on WOMT.
This has been Tax Insights, presented by Hawkins Ash CPAs. Learn more online at hawkinsashcpas.com. Hawkins Ash CPAs. Part of your business, part of your life.